all of the feelings, the emotions and such, I felt them all and very much. My excitement and crushes and attractions, you see, were directed at people just like me. Hi, I'm Debbie Rarick. I'm the founding director of You See Me Free Ministries in Waco, Texas. You See Me Free Ministries empowers transformational community that nurtures relational and sexual wholeness. Thank you for joining us on Chapter 5 of You See Me Free. So part of my struggle had to do with lies that I believed. The lies that I believed so well, I was convinced that they were the truth. Perception is reality. When you're not aware that you're believing lies, you think that the reality is the lies that you believe. And so that's part of why I stayed isolated. I had too much fear going on. And part of the reason I had the fear was because I learned a lie at an early age, one lie in particular, and it was the lie that feelings are trouble. I hear it a lot in the church. Feelings don't matter. Don't listen to your feelings. They're trouble, blah, blah, blah. I believed that to the point that I just shut my feelings off. Now I know that feelings are a vital part of who we are. There's a lot of God's passion and feeling in the scriptures. It's part of how we bear his image. And if I try to live a life without feelings informing me at all and being good servants to me, not controlling me, not being my master, but serving me, then I kind of have a truncated, not really a fully human experience, but that's how I existed for a long time because I was afraid. In that place of being fearful, I developed very strong codependent tendencies. And I became one who was very determined and very much in the practice of trying to self-protect and take care of myself. So again, another lie. God's not going to take care of me. I have to take care of myself. People aren't going to care and take care of me. I have to take care of myself. And that's how I lived back then. I lived that way, refusing to feel my emotions. But now, I don't live like that. In fact, when I wrote this book 8 years ago, I was writing this book in pain. It hurt me to write what I wrote. I don't experience that pain now, but at the time, it hurt me. It hurt me to remember what it was like to be locked up in homosexuality, locked up in fear, or locked up in codependency. My heart was aching because I was still on the journey of healing, even as the Lord had me write this book. This book was part of my healing journey. I had options before me, just like everybody does who deals with homosexual issues. If you struggle with homosexuality, if you have same-sex attractions, you have options. You can opt to go the way of homosexual identity, which I don't even have to tell you what your options are because they're rampant in the world today. But you also have the option of choosing to not identify as homosexual, choosing to not live your life homosexually. This option has fewer outlets and support, although it shouldn't, because the whole church should be supportive of this. Even if a church body supports somebody living homosexually, I just can't understand why they would not support somebody who chooses not to. But regardless of which option you choose, and in particular, if you choose the option to walk free from homosexuality, there's a lot that you're risking there because you're telling your story and you're sharing your vulnerabilities in a place that may not understand you, may not know how to support you. It's a risk that you've got to take, but you don't have to take it alone. And when I finally learned that lesson, it helped me. It helped me not just get healing and freedom in my life, but it helped me to step out there and risk to help you, to share the message of hope with you, and to share that, don't quit your journey of pressing into the Lord and walking. No matter how many times you fall, keep coming back to the Lord. Keep seeking his freedom. Keep trusting him. Keep calling out to him. He's never going to turn you away when you call out to him. So back to the story of how things developed in me differently when I was growing up. I lived in Michigan on an Air Force base when I was a little girl. And this is when the beginning of the homosexual feelings started to happen. Although I didn't have that language for them, I didn't know what to call them, but looking back, this is when I know they started to happen. And there were some things that happened in my life that helped orchestrate these feelings in my heart. And one of them is that we lived on the Air Force Base. It had a lot of wooded areas, and in the woods we would make forts, we would pick blueberries, we would just spend all day. Sometimes we'd go to the base lake that was in the woods, but also, and this is up until the age 11, so from age 4 to age 11, also we would just happen upon stacks and stacks of pornographic magazines. This was, again, back in the 70s. This was before cable. This was before internet. And so this was the source of pornography for most people. But we would happen upon stashes of pornography, and our forts were just full of them. And we would just look at it as little kids. We didn't know what we were doing. And so we would just go in the woods and look at porn. Around this time, I also started perceiving there's just something, I just feel like I'm different from other little girls. And so all of this is just contributing to the difference that developed in me. I got this message from my school teacher one day. She was out of the classroom, and I was just kind of acting up in the classroom, and she came in and she told me to settle down. She said, "You need to quit acting up. You're not a little boy." Well, at that point, I had no question of whether I was a little boy or not. I didn't think I was a little boy. But she made it clear to me, you're not a little boy. But she also told me little girls can't have fun, only little boys can. And so that was a confusing message. So not too far from that event, there was an event with a babysitter where I was climbing a tree. And I liked it, I enjoyed it. And she told me, she was yelling at me, "Get down from that tree because little girls don't like to climb trees." Well, I like to climb a tree. And she said that little girls don't like to climb trees. So I was like, well, maybe I'm not a little girl. And so I knew I wasn't a little boy from my teacher. And now I was wondering, like, am I a little girl from my babysitter? So not too long later, I saw a commercial on TV for a movie that was playing in the movie theaters. And it was about a man who was wanting to have a sex change operation. He was saying that he was a woman in a man's body, and the lie came in, and it captured me. I was just a little kid, and it captured me. That's it. I'm a little boy in a girl's body. That's why I'm not a girl. That's why I'm not a boy. But and so then here's this lie that came in, and it captured me. And it was a huge part of the deception during my development. During my formative years, a little girl is dealing with all this stuff. And this was back then, before it was trendy, before it was popular, before it was political, before it was socially acceptable like it is today. And I was completely isolated in this. But my understanding was based on lies that I believed. And those lies that I believed shaped my understanding, which shaped my further development. My mind was grasping on lies that I thought were the truth. I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to believe the truth. But as my mind believed lies, I was, like we know in Romans, I was transformed by renewing my mind. I was transformed by the lies that I allowed my mind to believe. Even though I didn't know they were lies, and they transformed me. Romans 12:1 and 2, be transformed by renewing your mind. Don't conform to the world any longer. That part, be transformed by renewing your mind, that's like the one command that everybody has to obey. Believe in God or not. Put your mind toward godly things or things of the world. You will be transformed. We will. We obey that command. And I obeyed it toward a lie. About that time, I would also learn of sexuality from teenagers, from media, from movies, the older kids that I hung out with. I learned a very skewed version of human sexuality, as you could imagine. So whether you are just finding out about the Lord and you're interested in finding out more, or if you're a seasoned believer in Jesus Christ, I just want to encourage you, if this ministers to you in any way, or if you know somebody who it can minister to, please contact our offices and pick up a copy of this book. freedom at youseemefree.org or our website, youseemefree.org. So I was physically continuing to grow as well. And one of the things that we need in our formative years as we grow and develop is we need that bonding with those of our own gender. And that is something that I was longing for. I never received it for whatever reason. I didn't perceive the bonding with my mom or scout leaders or babysitters. And I still needed that bonding with my own gender. I didn't get that from a mentor or care provider in any way. And part of it is because I lived by shutting my emotions down. So even if I was engaging with somebody, I was shut down emotionally. And again, this was because I learned that my feelings are trouble. It's a whole different world living on this side of learning the truth instead of that lie. So this is commonly known as homo-emotional bonding, and little boys go through this with men and little girls go through this with women, or that's what we need in order to have our development where we get connected, we get secure in our gender so that we can move toward relating with the opposite gender. And what happened to me was as I grew older and started heading toward puberty and even into puberty, I didn't have that connecting. And so I still had this yearning to connect with my own gender, this homo-emotional need, this God-giving innate thing that we need. And I didn't know this. I wasn't, a little kid saying, I need to homo-emotionally connect with somebody of my own gender, but I was driven to connect. But then when all the hormones of puberty came, then they came and they just meshed with those other drives that I had, and it all got more confusing and more frustrating, I can assure you. I felt so out of place among other little girls, with older girls, with women. I felt very much out of place, but I also felt out of place with boys, because even though for a while I was convinced I was a boy in a girl's body, I was still like in a girl's body, and so I didn't fit with the guys either. Most of the time, I had to not just go through the struggle and be isolated, but I also had to go through this struggle and hear unmerciful teasing about people who deal with this issue. It was very much crushing to my heart, and it taught me how much there wasn't care for people who deal with homosexual issues. There wasn't compassion. There wasn't understanding. There wasn't room for them. There wasn't space for them. And I interpreted all those things to be for me. And there was so much shame from having to deal with this in such an isolated way. How was I going to ever have normal growth, normal development when I was so isolated and so fearful? There was just no way that I was going to. When we came back to America when I was 13, these feelings of shame, they just compounded. For a couple of years, I was able to not act out, not be in sexual relationships with other girls, but eventually it overwhelmed me again, and I found myself acting out again. Some of the lies that I believed was that I was dirty for being female. I was dirty for having sexuality. There was something shameful about a physical body that was developing. These things all contributed to the development, the deception in my development. Misunderstandings that people have about homosexuality. I remember hearing in college, I remember hearing one of the students, the male students, talk about, no, the homosexual people should not be allowed in the military. I do not want to share a foxhole or a dorm room with a gay man. That's what this young male college student was saying. And I remember thinking in my head, that's so stupid. That's so unaware. I don't know, because not every Not every gay woman is attracted to every woman. Not every gay man is attracted to every man. Just like not every heterosexual man is attracted to every woman, or every heterosexual woman is attracted to every gay man. But it just helped me understand how misunderstood that I was. And I had to struggle with, do I try to explain? Do I try to understand myself? And it came down to this, why am I even asking myself that? Because I'm not going to share with anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody. But I was kind of making these plans in my head of like, if I do start talking about this. One thing that came loud and clear was that I needed to walk with the Lord. I needed to walk with the Lord the way the Lord said for me to walk with him. And he said for me to walk with him, but he also said for me to walk with other people. You know, I'm not proud of choices that I've made in my life, but because of the Lord, I'm not ashamed of them either. And I'm not afraid to share because I know there's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. And I'm in Christ Jesus. And I've got a ton of struggles. I don't struggle with homosexuality like I used to. I don't. But I've got a lot of other struggles that I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with food addiction in my life. Fear has crept back up currently in my life. And so I'm having to make some confrontations and do things that I'm uncomfortable with. But I'm doing it in the context of the body, and I'm not doing it isolated and alone anymore. And it's amazing to walk with Jesus as my high priest, like we learn about in Hebrews, because he's guiding me and he's directing me. My path of dealing with homosexuality is the exact path that I needed, because it was the exact combination of things that orchestrated that to develop in my life. And so I need my particular path with the Lord to walk out of it. And if you're struggling with this, then you need to do that too. I just hope that the message is coming across that God loves you and he cares about the struggle that you have. He cares about the things that make you afraid, and he cares about hurt that has happened in your heart and longings that you have that you're just aching to have fulfilled. He has a plan in a righteous way to fulfill all those needs in your life. So as we come to the end of this chapter, let me ask you a couple questions. Are there any lies that you've believed? Are there any lies that you need to stop believing? Maybe you already know the truth that you need to replace that lie with. How have the lies affected you? Or how have a half-hearted belief in the truth, how has that affected you? I want you to take a few minutes and think about those things. The truth will set us free. When we know the truth, and Jesus Christ is the truth, when we walk with him and become his disciples and follow him, we will be set free. It's a journey, it's a process. Discipling is a lifelong experience. But as you come to know him and surrender to him and follow him, you will experience freedom in many areas of your life. Contact our offices if you have any prayer requests or if you have questions for us. freedom@ucmefree.org.